Today, you are going to learn some magic words that you can say to the police to help keep your butt from getting arrested right after you've been forced to shoot a violent attacker in self-defense. But first, for new viewers, as a police detective throughout my career, I have investigated major crimes, and also, unfortunately, I was forced into a self-defense shooting incident myself. And I don't talk about my self-defense shooting incident just to brag about it. I talk about it so that, number one, you know that what I am telling you in this video is from real life experience. And then number two, I want you to know what you should expect should you ever be involved in a self-defense shooting yourself. Also, welcome to this channel. This channel is all about prepping and self-defense. So if you like this kind of information that the lamestream media typically hides, then please consider subscribing to this channel and also hitting that like button. Now, before I tell you what these magical words are, let me explain just really fast of why they work so well. So as we all already know, shooting somebody is against the law. It's a crime unless it's a justified self-defense shooting. So when you have been forced to shoot a violent attacker in self-defense, when the cops first arrive until something tells them that what you did was a justified self-defense shooting, because shooting somebody is a crime, the cops are automatically going to presume that a crime was committed, and they will handcuff you and detain you and start the process for arresting you. Now, what makes these magical words so effective is that they actually force the police into a position where the police now have to develop probable cause in order to arrest you, which means that they will have to end up releasing you, obviously as long as no evidence is contradicting what you tell the police. And folks, let me just repeat that again for this video. These magical words will force the police into a position where they have to develop probable cause in order to arrest you, which means they are going to have to release you, again, as long as no evidence or anything like that contradicts what you tell them. So here are the magical words that you will want to say to the police when they arrive to your self-defense shooting scene. These are the words that I would say if I were involved in another self-defense shooting. I would say, "Officer, he did X." Insert whatever crime that guy committed there. Then you would say, "I was afraid for my life, so I defended myself. Now, I don't want to answer any more questions until I speak with my attorney, and I don't feel good and I wish to be taken to the hospital." Now, let's give kind of a real world example there to help kind of clarify that statement. If a criminal approached me and pulled a knife on me and demanded my money, and I shot him in self-defense, my statement would go like this. I would say, "Officer, he pulled a knife on me and demanded my money. I was afraid for my life, so I defended myself. Now, I don't want to answer any more questions until I speak with my attorney, and I don't feel good and I wish to be taken to the hospital." So what you did by saying those magical words is you have flipped the script there. When the cops first arrived, they had a person that was shot and you were the shooter. Therefore, at that point, with knowing nothing, as far as they are concerned, a crime was committed by you. But once you say those magical words, now you have flipped that script, and you are now showing that that attacker committed the violent crime against you, and you legally and justifiably defended yourself, and now you have placed the police officers into a position where they basically have to disprove what you're saying, and they have to develop probable cause now in order to actually arrest you after your shooting. So let's break those magical words down just really fast. When you say, "Officer, he did X," all you are doing is just simply explaining of what that violent attack was that allowed you to legally and justifiably defend yourself using deadly force. And then when you say, "I was afraid for my life, so I defended myself," all you're doing there is just simply saying that you were in fear for your life, therefore you legally defended yourself, and you're not getting too deep into the weeds about it. And then when you say, now I don't want to answer any more questions until I speak with my attorney, now at this point you have already conveyed to the police that he committed a violent action against you that put you in fear for your life, so you defended yourself. So now what you're doing at this point is, since you've given them the information that they need at that moment in time, now you are invoking your Fifth Amendment right so that you don't say too much at that point, so you don't say something that can be innocent but can be misconstrued in court down the road. Now that last part where you say, now I don't feel good and I wish to be taken to the hospital, that does a couple of very important things. The first thing that it does is it gets you away from that chaotic crime scene and gets you into a more sterile and clean environment. Then the second thing that it does is, after a self-defense shooting with your adrenaline through the roof, you could have injuries that you don't even know about. So anytime that you have to use deadly force to defend yourself, it is just a good idea to get yourself medically checked out. And then here's the third thing about going to the hospital that a lot of people don't understand, that it's why it's so important. A lot of people don't know that if you are in police custody and the police take you to the hospital, then the hospital will give that police department or the jurisdiction your hospital bills, and police departments don't want to pay your hospital bills. So in many agencies across this country, if you are going to the hospital, the police will intentionally not arrest you so they don't get stuck with your hospital bills, so that your insurance is the one that pays those hospital bills. So that if you request to go to the hospital, more than likely, I don't want to say 100% proof, but more than likely the police are not going to keep you in custody so that they don't get stuck with your hospital bills. Now, I shouldn't have to say this next part, but I will say it anyways. Folks, if you murder somebody, if you're committing crimes with firearms, those magical words are not going to keep your butt from getting arrested. Those magical words are going to only work if you are legally and justifiably defending yourself against violent criminals. Also too, make sure you know the laws in your area. The examples that I'm talking about in this video, while they do work across most of the United States, there are some areas in this country where they have really restrictive self-defense laws. Now, while those magical words will force the cops into a position where they have to develop probable cause before they can actually arrest you, it doesn't mean that you're going to be released just as soon as you say those words. It's not like the cops are going to say, well, he said it was self-defense, cut him loose. What the police are going to need to do after you spoke those magic words to them, what the police are going to need to do is they're going to need to then process that crime scene to try to confirm, or at least help confirm, that what you told them is true. But I will tell you this, it usually only takes a couple of hours to process a crime scene like that. And I will tell you this, I promise you this, spending a couple of hours in the backseat of a squad car while they process that crime scene, or hopefully you're at the hospital, but spending a couple of hours like that beats the heck, I mean absolutely beats the heck out of going to the county jail for an overnight stay, or even multiple days if that bond is set high enough for you. I'll tell you, if you are a law-abiding person, the last place you want to go is most of these county jails across this country, where you are having to fight gang members for a cot to sleep that night, or you can't drop the soap or whatever. Now, after you have shot that violent attacker in self-defense, and you have spoken those magical words to the police officers which force them to release you a short time later, just understand that that self-defense incident, the legal part, is not completely over yet. There's a very high likelihood that a few days later, the police are going to want a detailed statement from you of step by step of what occurred. And this is where you want to make sure that you have your defense attorney with you when you give that detailed statement to the police, if you and your attorney decide that that's in your best interest. That attorney is going to make sure that you word everything in your detailed statement so that it's worded correctly, so that it can't be, again, innocent but misconstrued and being used against you in court down the road. And speaking of self-defense attorneys, and speaking from somebody that has been involved in a self-defense shooting, it is time for me to pay the bills, and that is why I will always suggest firearms legal protection to anybody that has a gun for self-defense. I personally use Firearms Legal Protection because, number one, they have a 24-hour hotline, so as soon as you are involved in your self-defense shooting, you can call that hotline where a real attorney will answer the phone. And because a real attorney answers the phone, you have the attorney-client privilege there, so that phone call cannot be used in court. Also, and this is the huge thing that I don't think enough people realize, is that Firearms Legal Protection, when you call that hotline, they will dispatch a defense attorney to your scene wherever you're at, if you're still at the shooting scene or whether now you are at the hospital. But that self-defense attorney will now come and start dealing with the police on your behalf. And I just don't think enough people understand how important it is to have a defense attorney coming to you so soon after your shooting happened. That part right there is what's really going to save your butt that night, the next day, and could be years down the road. And my big fear with some of these other self-defense companies is that it may take 2 or 3 days for one of their attorneys to end up making contact with you. And if that's the case, that could be 2 or 3 days that you stay in the county jail, again, having to fight gang members for a cot or not being able to drop the soap or whatever other crazy stuff happens in jail. Now, also with Firearms Legal Protection, if you still get arrested after your shooting, Firearms Legal Protection will pay your bond if one is posted. And then if your shooting incident ends up going to trial, Firearms Legal Protection will pay for your trial attorneys to fight for you in court. Anyways, folks, if you want to check them out, I will put a link to them down below, and I believe that you do get a discount if you use my link to join them for about the cost of a box of ammo per month. Now, right now, there are some keyboard commandos pounding on their keyboards at home saying, don't say anything to the police, don't say anything at all after you've been forced to shoot a violent attacker in self-defense. And if you are one of those people that have that mindset, hey, that is completely your right. All I just have to warn you of is that if you completely invoke your Fifth Amendment rights and say absolutely nothing at all instead of those few magic words, if that is your mindset, you just have to be willing to know that you're risking spending the night, if not multiple days, at your county lockup again, having to fight for a bed or not being able to drop the soap. So what are your thoughts on this subject? Would you say absolutely nothing at all, or would you at least say those magic words to the police after you've been forced to shoot a violent attacker in self-defense? Comment down below with your thoughts on the subject. And to see a whole playlist of videos where the topic is of using deadly force against a violent attacker, then click on the video that should be appearing on the screen just about now to learn what most other gun owners don't know. Anyways, folks, this is enough internet for me today. I do actually want to do a little bit of training, but folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.